What's up, YouTube fans? So we are here live with Paik4Life. You want me to call you Paik?
Yeah, that's fine. Paik4Life, Paik, Henry, whatever works.
Okay, I know. Others in the community might know you by your name, but I'm gonna call you Paik for the review. Again, I asked Paik it was about a week ago if he could do a review interview, and again I was able to quickly pretty much set up an appointment within a couple days. And I'm definitely excited to talk to you about some of the reviews you do and kind of your connections with the community. So that's kind of why I'm having you on here. You have some unique connection to some of the manufacturers and some good insight into what's going on with the community. So thank you for agreeing to come on.
No, thanks for having me. I honestly was surprised that somebody would ask me for an interview. It's kind of weird. It's one thing to have your own channel, but to be asked to join somebody else's channel for a conversation, it's definitely flattering, especially for someone who's not as popular as some of the other reviewers out there. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're too humble. You're too humble. Have you done one? Have you done an interview before?
No, I mean for work and other related stuff, but never for my YouTube channel. No.
Okay. So yeah, I basically want to talk about Transformers. Obviously, I want to talk about reviewing a little bit, and I just want to talk about the community. That's mostly what this is going to be about. So I'm going to ask my questions. So anybody that's on the line, we do have a few people watching. I'm going to save your questions for the end. So if you do have questions for Paik, just hold them to the end. And if you do chat in the chat window, we probably won't see it. But I'll give you a chance at the end to get your questions in. Okay. So where are you from? Where do you live?
I'm from Southern Maryland, so actually not that far, I guess, from Bobby. I know he lives in. I've been to his place before, but I grew up in Southern Maryland, like 30 minutes south of DC, in a small town called Waldorf. But I'm living in Northern Virginia now. But I've mostly spent, aside from a couple of years outside of college, I spent almost all my time in the greater DC, Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia area. And I spent a couple of years up in Providence and Rhode Island, which is actually kind of funny. It's near Hasbro, and I didn't know that. And I never visited that place while I was there, the 2 years I was there. So now I regret it because I wasn't collecting at the time. But
okay.
yeah, I'm a Connecticut native.
I said I grew up in Connecticut, so it's not too far from.
Yeah.
Now I live in New York, but so you're now in, you said Virginia, or sorry,
Yeah, Virginia. Yeah.
Okay. So you know Bobby personally?
Yeah, I mean, I've met him, I guess, just randomly. Well, not randomly, but like, just through reviews and so forth. We talked a couple of times, and then actually for work, I talked to him on the phone because his career, my career, the projects I was working on in my career intersected with what he does in real life, and so I ended up talking with him. He invited me to his annual Skull Fest. And he gave me a hard time actually for a couple of years because the first year or two he invited me, I couldn't make it, and so he made a big thing out of it. And I think on one of his videos, he told everyone to come to my channel and put Skullfest or bust. And so for I don't know months, I had people coming from his channel coming to mine and just commenting Skullfest or bust. So I was peer pressured into going to his place, which is only like, I think maybe like an hour drive from me. So he's a really great guy, very humble to open his home up to all these fans and everything like that. So I was lucky to go, I think maybe a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, and I missed the last one as well, just because, family and kids make it kind of hard to take a whole day off.
So that's brand new information. I didn't even know you knew him or had been to his house or anything like that. That's
without the mask and everything.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So you he hasn't really shared his, every time I ask him what does he do for a living, he says he's a janitor. And I know that's not what he does, so I guess he doesn't really want to share that. I kind of know, what you're into in terms of technology and project management and that kind of stuff, but I have no clue what he works on.
Yeah, I would be happy to share, but I think that would be outside of my bounds too.
Yeah, he wants some privacy. I'll respect that. Well, that's cool. So that's new information. I'm sure fans didn't know about that. So how did you get into Transformers? What got you into Transformers?
I mean, kind of like I think most people, right? They kind of grew up with it. I was born in '82, so right in the early part of the '80s. Loved the cartoon. Didn't really grow up with the comics so much, although I did have some. But just like everyone, when you see giant robots transforming, making that sound, I mean, that's just all sorts of sensory um, wild card for a kid. And then my parents, being an only child, my parents spoiled me rotten to the core. So they would buy me whatever I wanted. So I had all the Transformers I could ever dream of, really. And then, you grow up, but as with all things, old becomes new. And I was a father of a young kid, and in Toys R Us a few years ago, I think like 6 or 7 years ago. And that's when I saw the new Masterpiece Soundwave, and it was on the shelf, and I remember seeing it, and I remember instantly, oh my gosh, Soundwave, and I was amazed at how like accurate and detailed and the transformation. And I remember distinctly, while I did have a lot of Transformers toys as a kid, I never had Soundwave. They got me Blaster, which is every, I think, Transformer kid's nightmare when you ask for Soundwave, the tape deck, and your parents don't know what that is, so they get you the other tape deck, and you're like, no, not Blaster. Nobody cares about Blaster. Everybody likes Soundwave. So
Soundwave is what got you back into the hobby?
Well, that got the feels, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna pick this up, and I had no idea. Masterpiece hunting in the U.S. is usually pretty hard, which I came to find out later. But after seeing that, I just picked it up and bought it for myself, and then from there, I just kind of fell into learning about, oh, this is only the second release in the Masterpiece line. So I started looking up what the Masterpiece line was, and then I saw the other Hasbro ones, and then I found out about the Takara ones, and that just like opened up the lens to the world of advanced, collectibles for Transformers. And then it's a slippery slope, and that's really how I got into it.
So did you get Soundwave before you got Optimus MP10?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't even know Optimus existed. I got the Soundwave, and then I started looking at the old ones, and then I saw like the MP10 one, but then I also looked back further and saw the original MP01 after looking into the Takara ones, and saw that had a Hasbro release, and then I just started trolling eBay basically and spending egregious amounts of money on things that were like hard to find or out of date. Now it's like MP01 was way past available by the time I got into collecting.
I see you have some of your collection in the background. Is this your collection room, or is
we have a nice house out here. We're in the suburbs, maybe even less than suburbs where I live, so we get a decent amount of space. But I got the smallest room designated to me by my wife in the house. 5 bedrooms. I get the smallest one for my office / collectibles. And it looks a lot cleaner right now. I cleaned it up for you guys, but yeah, I got some stuff over here. I have a couple of D-tops over here, and even on my desk that you can't see right here, I have the Toy World Devastator and stuff like that. Nice. And to be honest, I probably have more stuff that's not open than is currently displayed, because again, it's the slippery slope.
What a bad problem to have.
Well, I mean, it is when your wife finds out how much you have that you didn't even open.
Right. Yeah, just for my fans, I don't have my laptop this week, so I'm in the office. So I got a bunch of junk behind me. It's basically all Christmas presents that I got to wrap.
Oh, I thought that was just a bunch of Transformers.
No, it's
be opened.
Right there is a Hulk and a Hulkbuster that I reviewed. I got like 0 views. So I decided not to review Marvel Legends anymore. I'm just going to do Transformers. But
yeah, I dabbled in Marvel Legends and figure arts and other stuff for a while, but I was like, other people are doing such a better job of it, then I'm just going to stick to Transformers.
Yeah. So did you start collecting after you found that Masterpiece Soundwave? Is that where you started?
Yeah, that was it. That was really it.
Do you collect anything other beyond Transformers, or is that really your bag?
Yeah, I grew up as a Dragon Ball fan, so I still read and a lot of manga. I watch a little bit of anime, but mostly manga. Grew up on Dragon Ball, so I have I think almost all of the figure arts. But again, most of them, I think like probably 90% of them are just kind of boxed up above the shelf, which you can't see. Like I have at least a dozen of them up there that didn't open. I have some Naruto figure arts figures. I have some Marvel stuff. I have some One Piece stuff. I have some Super Robot stuff, but really my Super Robot collection is limited to mostly like Mazinga or Voltron. So that's about it. Almost predominantly Transformers.
Yeah, I'm a solely Masterpiece Transformers collectors. I don't even collect anything outside of the Masterpiece line.
See, I was like you. I was like you in the past, but again, it's slippery.
So, what led you to doing reviews? Why'd you start reviewing stuff?
Well, I ended up after the Soundwave. The next release was the Grimlock MPO3 the Hasbro designation MPO3 Grimlock, and that was like really hard to find, but I ended up finding one luckily, and a lot of people were asking, what's the difference between the previous original release that was in that weird clear box and the Takara release and this one, and there was also the King Grimlock one. And like I said, once I got Soundwave, I basically just started collecting everything. So I had, I think, every single version of Grimlock. So when I did, I was like, oh, people were asking about this. I was like, oh, I'll just, since I have them, might as well do a video and show people what the new one is and then do a comparison. Because people are like, oh, I heard the plastic's a lot thinner or a lot clearer or see-through, which was true. So I just, on a whim, decided to do a video. No thought process behind it at all. Just people were asking for it, and I wanted to give back to the community.
So you said you kind of slowed down on reviews. Is that just for family or?
I think again, it's come when you come to a point at some point in when you're collecting, when you realize you have a problem. Like when you have more unopened stuff than you have like open stuff, and I think that was one of the things. And also, I haven't. It's one of those things that I think Bobby talked about in your interview with him. A lot of times it's a first mover advantage kind of thing. If you're not first with reviews, you're often pretty much last. And I got tired of like that game of always wanting to get stuff first. And for me, I get stuff mostly from my sponsor, Toy Dojo. So by the time he gets it and then sends it to me from Texas, I mean, we're not very close. And I don't try to bother him by having him send me something, just like one thing, just so I can review it. I try to, amass a certain amount. So as far as timing, that's kind of what led to it. My, I guess, decline of the number of reviews. And I think it's also just time. I started a new job in like the last year. My daughter's getting a little bit older, to the age where she needs more attention, stays up a little bit later. So I used to do all my reviews, late at night, which becomes harder and harder the later your kids stay up. So that's really it. But
I know the life.
Yeah, it's not that I'm stopping. It's just that it's not a priority for me to get a review done as soon as possible. But if I get MP44 very quickly, because I'm getting that shipped directly from me to me from overseas, I'll do that one for sure. But yeah, most of the stuff I collect, since I'm slowing down, it's not a high priority for me to do a review very quickly. And there's so many good reviewers out there that sometimes it's like, why even bother?
I'm in the exact same boat. I have a daughter, 5-year-old, and I squeeze in reviews at night. After I put her to bed. So that's like really the only time. A lot of people don't really understand. We have a full-time job and kids and a family and whatever else you do, and then you're trying to fit this in between. So
yeah,
it doesn't always take priority. But
yeah, and to be honest, like I don't think a lot of people give credit to reviewers that how much time they spend like prepping, or at least I think a lot of them do. I know some of them do. Like Vangelis, obviously his production values are ridiculous. Chris is great. I mean, I can't. I'm not the type that just opens a figure and just reviews it. Especially because I guess a lot of people like my reviews for the transformation, since I do both ways for all my reviews. I transform. I spend like a couple hours with the figure usually if it's like a masterpiece, just getting it down pat before I even film. So there's a lot of prep work. Even I'm sure you know too, that goes into it before the camera turns on and after the camera turns off.
Right.
So it's not just what goes on screen. It's a lot of time and devotion.
Yeah, I've seen you do some videos with the guys from ages 3 and up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that due to you meeting them at a convention, or how'd you get connected with those guys?
It's like I think I know some of the questions you're going to ask have to do with like all these connections I have. It's like in most things I learned in life. It's a lot of times not about what you know, but about who you know. And it's really because of Toy Dojo. Eddie, the owner there, he just reached out to me one time and asked me if I was going to do reviews, and I got connected with him, and we got really close. We were friends, and then when I went to TFCon, I helped him out at his booth, and he's very tight with ages 3 and up. Boris.
Competing retailers, though?
What's that?
They're competing retailers, aren't they?
Yeah, they're competing retailers, but I mean, even in that space, like all the retailers know each other at some point. They've helped each other out in numerous different ways, whether they're big guys or small guys. As far as I know, they're all pretty well connected, and so when the floor closes, everybody's helping everyone else because it's setting up and tearing down for a convention is a lot of work. So and again, they help each other out throughout the year as well. Like maybe somebody oversold one figure, so they're like, "Hey, do you have an extra of this I need?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And so they help each other out. But it's the ages 3 and up, Madhouse, Toy Dojo. They're all very close to each other. Like outside of just the community, they're close with each other as friends now after developing that relationship. So that group is very tight knit, and that's how kind of that came about, just from knowing Eddie and helping him out at TFCon, then helping out Boris and helping out Eric at Madhouse and all that kind of. That's also, their established relationships with vendors. So like when MMC's there, their reps are there. I just helped out as well, and that's kind of how a lot of it got snowballed into something bigger than I honestly deserve to have, given how new and again what I view as not as popular as many others.
It's really fascinating to hear about that. So we don't see a lot of that, right? It's all behind the scenes, and it's part of the hobby that not a lot of people see or know about. So that's kind of why I'm asking those questions, is because people don't know. They just don't know. Ages 3 and up and Toy Dojo are actually friends, and they help each other. Even though they're competing retailers, they are buddies, and you're friends with them too.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. So parlaying off of that, how did you get connected with X-Transbots and MMC? I mean, are they even in the U.S. or are they like from another country?
No, they're like I think I can't think of a single third party that's, at least off the top of my head, that's U.S. based. All that stuff usually takes place over in China or Hong Kong, at least as well as the manufacturing. There might be some team members that are international, but by and large they're based over there. I'm sorry, what was the question? Oh, how to get connected with them. But again, it was mostly through Eddie and his relationships. And again, MMC, Boris and Eddie and Eric help out a lot of the third-party companies that want to send samples over, but they're not going to be there. MMC, Fans Project, Make Toys. They're some of the few vendors that are there consistently. And MMC usually helped out. The logistics of it, I think, is usually helped out by that group of Toy Dojo, Madhouse, and ages 3 and up. So when you go to the conventions where they're always in this kind of same layout because all logistically they booked it all together. And that's how I got to know the reps from MMC, Ocular Max too, obviously. and obviously they've seen some of my reviews, and Eddie put in a good word for me and saying, hey, have you seen his reviews? A lot of people like how he does transformations. Maybe you should think about doing transformation manuals, because let's be honest, most manuals, instruction manuals, are terrible, whether it's first party or third party. They're pretty terrible, and a lot of people like being able to see it. So they were like, yeah, sure. And I think they were looking at some of the higher end collectibles, like Soul of Chigoken. Bandai does like some promotional videos that show transformation and stuff like that. So they were like, oh, let's do something like that and make our brand stick out, look more collectible and high level and luxurious. So that's kind of where it started.
So how did your name end up on the boxes?
That was all them. Chigo King, the gem, he is the one that does a lot of the artwork for Ocular Max and stuff like that. He does like the artwork and the design for the box layout. He just they just started doing like credits, and without even me asking, he put my logo on there. So and that was something that they obviously cleared with MMC, but I think that was one of the things that they kind of pioneered, kind of bringing forth the team that, again, you said not a lot of people know what happened behind the scenes, or the people behind it. They wanted to bring those people forward, the people that did like the photographs, the artwork, like Legem, Hard Return does some of the photos. I'm missing. I know there's another photographer who, for the life of me, I can't remember his screen name now. The designers who do all the engineering and sculpting, like they deserve a lot of credit, and they're prideful of their work as well, right? So they wanted to support them as artists and as contributors with a small little credit thing. And the first time I saw that was when I think I opened the box for one of the Ocular Max toys, the first one, and so it was a surprise to me as well.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
With X-Transbots, yeah, it was. I think it was again through Eddie or maybe through Eric, through Madhouse Toys. Eric has a really great relationship with X-Transbots and KFC. I actually had like a bad first impression with X-Transbots, I think, because I got their Megatron
or the previous one.
Yeah, the Megatron for review, and I reviewed it, and the arm was very loose, and so I took off the arm because, well, it fell off when I was transforming, and I was like, oh, well, I can put it back on and transform it, but then I wanted to show you this mechanism which would be easier to show. And then in China, when they saw that review, they were like, oh, you have to take off the arm to transform it? That's a terrible toy. So there was so much bad press over in China. And then, obviously, X-Transbot was not happy, and so they contacted us and was like, you know, what is he doing? And because they don't really understand either, like I was clearly explaining that you don't need to do this, but it makes it easier for me to show you what's going on. But again, lost in translation type thing. No, so for a long time, X-Transbots KFC did not want me to review anything or review any of their samples. But you know, again, as years went by, we strengthened that relationship, and that's kind of how it happened. And also the designer 598, who does almost all of the designs for X-Transbots. I think that's basically his line now. I met him, and I have a good relationship with him, so that's also helped that relationship become nurtured and patch that wound.
So did the designers not speak English? Did they not? How come they couldn't understand what you were saying?
No. So like the viewers in China who watch the YouTube review, they don't all understand English or fluently, and so they were like, they thought you had to take off the arm to transform it, so that everyone was like, no, I'm not going to buy the toy. I don't want a toy where I have to take off an arm to transform it and so forth. Which
that's me in my review too. Same exact thing.
Right. So again, it's not anybody's fault, because obviously I wasn't even considering the international audience. But I do so a lot more now. So
do you know these designers personally?
Yeah, I know a couple of them personally. Like I said, 598, I met him before, and we talked quite a bit.
How did you?
I'm sorry?
How did you meet him?
He was at TFCon one time, but I think I also chatted with him previously, because I was looking at I was maybe reviewing a sample or something like that. I don't remember exactly how I met him, or first interacted with him, but it was something to do with toys, obviously, and something that he designed. And I think I met him at TFCon Chicago maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and just very briefly. But then that's when we just started chatting, and again, being nerds, we just kind of built a relationship from there.
I just want to tell so if you don't know, 598 Robots is the designer for X-Transbots. So he actually has his own YouTube channel, so you can go watch his reviews.
Yeah, his reviews are very entertaining as well.
Yeah, he shows off new products. Actually, the first time I saw this guy was 598's review, and then yours. You had it well ahead of all of us. It was really cool to see it. So he came from China for TFCon?
So not all designers are China based. I'm just saying the companies are China based. And I don't know how much I can share. I don't think I should share a lot about where people are located, but not all designers are Chinese based. And from what I understand, again, this is just from what I know, kind of hearsay or from my experience. There's not that many designers that are like dedicated to one line. They're basically like contractors, and so or freelancers. Freelancers is probably a better word. Where they'll maybe think of a design of a character they want, and they might shop it around to a couple different third-party companies. So you'll see some lines that are very specifically by designer, like 598. I think I don't want to say 100% did all of the engineering for all of X-Transbots, but I'm pretty sure he was heavily involved in almost all of the X-Transbots line. I know he's contributed a bit to some of the KFC lines since they're like brother sister companies. Like the Fans Project Function X line, that was primarily, I think it might be all of the base designs and engineering were done by Jazai. If you know Jazai Toys, he does a lot of interesting, fun projects as well. But yeah, so a lot of them, most of them though, don't have that kind of dedicated, I design only for this company and this line or so forth. Most of them, from my understanding, are freelancers.
So you have some very good inside information that a lot of us don't really know how things happen in the industry or how they work behind the scenes. By the way, there's 13 people watching. Some of you are asking questions, so we'll take your questions at the end, after I get through kind of what I want to talk to Paik about, and then we'll talk to you guys. So yeah, it just really is fascinating to me, the world and how it works, and also I have a little bit of jealousy because I wish I was plugged in like you are, but actually I'm starting this as something different. So I talked on my interview with Bobby, we talked about this, but setting yourself apart from the rest is kind of the only way to really make a move in this world, And I think you for sure were one of the first reviewers I've ever seen do a live review where you had the designer in the chat room talking and trying to answer questions. That was really cool. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, again, that was really by happenstance. Then again, people I know, I was doing a live stream review, and I think again, Lejam, Chogo King, he's the Ocular Max box artist, but I think also was part of the design for their recent Cliff Jumper. And I was just doing a review on that, and I posted that I would do a live stream review because I've been doing a lot of those. And he just happened to want to join, even though he's in Europe. He's in France. I think that's pretty well known. And he joined, and he would just started answering questions in the chat. And I was like, this is awesome. This was so cool to have like somebody who's part of this figure be able to actually interact with the community. And so it was all serendipitous. And from there, that's when I got the idea, hey, I'm going to do this some more. And that's when I asked 598. I asked a couple of other designers, and a couple of them did say they would do it. I just have kind of fallen off and been lazy about it, but I do want to have other designers come in and participate in some future live streams.
That's really cool. We're definitely excited to see more of what you've been doing, because it's great to see the designer kind of interacting and hearing their input into, you know, how they made the figure and kind of how does it work.
Yeah, it's just getting into their mind space and why certain designs were this way. And again, I'm not an engineer. I could never even imagine all the work that goes into it, the thought process. But hearing that from them, you're like, I don't know why didn't you do this? Because everyone thinks they're a backseat driver, backseat designer. Everyone's like, oh, they should have done this, and I'm guilty of that as well. I say that in my reviews all the time. But then I'll hear from them like, oh, you can't because of this or this reason or this reason. And to hear that live, I think that opens up people's minds and understanding a bit more. So they won't just openly trash something now. Once they know what you have to go through, what limitations you have around it. So I think it's good to educate people.
Yeah, I'm an engineer, and it's just as amazing to me. Even though, you know, I'm in that space, it's still amazing how they design these things. All right, so I'm going to kind of change gears here. So what's something about you that you want fans to know that they don't know? What's something about reviewing or about this world that you want them to know?
Well, so one of the things that I think is not just about me, but it's kind of a misconception is about, so a lot of people have like an idea what sponsorship means. And so my sponsorship deal with Toy Dojo is really that they don't pay me anything. I basically get toys at a discount. They don't have any editorial power over what I review or how I review it, or my opinions of it. And I think a lot of people automatically assume every sponsored reviewer wants to sell you that toy, which is not the case. I'll tell you when I don't want something or I don't recommend it. I've done that on record a lot of times, even for companies that like MMC that send me toys for free and that I do work for on the side. But those are different things, right? And when I'm doing an instruction manual, I have a job to do that, but that doesn't cross over into my review. So I think a lot of people, again, just think sponsored reviewers are making all this money and they're paid to chill as much as they can. And at least for me, I definitely don't do that. And the main reason why I went with Toy Dojo was upfront. They told me that they like my reviews, they like my honesty, and that they didn't want any control over that process, which was really great because they didn't know me. And again, they're a retailer. They want to sell toys, obviously. But that is something I think a lot of people just misinterpret. And again, maybe some people are making tons of money, especially maybe those that have lots of views. But I don't think anybody has a lucrative full-time job. Maybe Optobonomus, because I think he started doing full-time, but obviously he's huge. But again, his is from like kind of like YouTube and stuff like that. I don't think he's getting like a share of every single toy that he sells or anything like that.
Recently, have you watched Optobonomus? Because he quit. He's now working a full-time job. And
no, honestly, I used to watch him a lot. I don't watch a lot of other YouTube reviewers nowadays. Yeah. There are a couple that I do watch, but that's kind of, well, I guess it's not sad because he's getting paid, but
he was getting paid. He just couldn't make enough income to survive, so he had to get a regular day job, and so his reviews have slowed down. But he's definitely not a full-time reviewer anymore.
Oh, gotcha. Oh,
the guy I know who does this full-time as a job is Mgo.
Is who?
Mgo.
Oh, Mgo. Okay.
What is it? M Gomez? I think is his name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's the only one I know that actually makes a career out of it. Everybody else, and all the sponsorship are the same. I've even BBTS. I've talked to them, and it all works the same way. It's basically a discount on the toys. It's not, you don't get paid. The only pay you really get is ad revenue, right? And that is minimal. You can't get off of it.
especially with YouTube, there are changes in policies. Yeah, they make. I mean, people who do this for a living, more power to them, because again, I don't get that many views, and I think I maybe bank like $100 every quarter or something like that from YouTube. It may be less now since I'm pushing out less content, but that's probably the biggest thing I would say. Sponsorships don't equate bias, and I guess maybe it does, but I think also there's no such thing as an unbiased review. I mean, you're watching a review, everyone has bias. I think what you should be careful of is by openly saying and thinking that you have no bias. I think that's actually kind of foolish, because everyone has bias, and the only way to kind of mitigate that is to acknowledge that you have bias and address that. Not to say that I'm not biased, because everyone has bias. It's impossible not to have it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do this, right? We're giving our opinion, hoping that we can help somebody decide to buy or not buy a figure. That's kind of what it's about. For sure. It's our opinion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of talking about that, because I think that's probably a misconception for lots of people that do this, is that they're making money, or the toy maker is paying them for somehow, which is not really the case.
Yeah.
I love it. I like reviews. I like being a part of the community. That's what I get out of it.
I agree.
So obviously, your name is Paik, your last name, but where'd you get the name Paik4Life?
It's from it's pretty embarrassing. I got it from like middle school. It was like my AIM, if you guys remember AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. And I think it was like in middle school when I was super into wrestling, like WWE, WCW. And if you guys remember, like new NWO, the New World Order, they had like NWO for life, and I was like, oh, Paik4Life, that sounds awesome. And so I actually don't know why I still keep it. It's just that it's just easy for me to remember. But that's the embarrassing, not so interesting history of where I got Paik4Life from.
Stuck with you from childhood.
Yeah, I'm not that original.
Gotcha. So if you obviously are a collector, if you could have any collectible, doesn't matter the price, whether it's expensive or cheap, what's your holy grail? What's something you would want to have?
So I saw this in the list of questions you sent me ahead of time, and I thought about this really hard, and I honestly can't think of anything. I guess I'm really spoiled, because I basically, my wife is so cool. She doesn't budget me or anything like that. And I'm not so crazy in the sense that I won't buy anything without her approval, or I'll in my mind I have an idea of what I think is sensible. So I've bought expensive things. You talked about the Ultimate Prime with Bobby. I actually bought that. Obviously, Toy Dojo hooked me up, but it was still a very hefty product. And I thought long and hard about it, and I ended up budgeting by selling a lot of my other collectibles. So I've been lucky enough to be able to buy everything that I wanted. I will say I did get one of my grails last year or the year before from another TFW member. I won't share his name just because I don't know if he would want me to. But he goes by, his name is Chris. I won't share his last name or his username, but the Solar Chigoken Mazinga, the DX Mazinga Z, that was released a long time ago, and it had like all of the armor that you could take off and see the endoskeleton and everything like that. And that had been sold out for a while, and I think it's retail for like $600, but it was going for well over $1,000 at one point. And I was just in the Soul of Chigoken thread at TFW, and I was just like, man, I really want one. And then this guy Chris was like, oh, I have two, and I was like, I jokingly said, oh, the one want to sell me one? And he messaged me and was like, yeah, I'll sell you one. I was like, oh, how much do you want for it? And he was like, retail plus shipping. And this was, again, like years afterwards, where he could have gotten two, or at least two, or maybe three times as much for it. And I was like, there's no way I can even accept that. Like, you don't even know me. Like, we've posted messages on the same board, but you don't know me. And I would feel really bad about that. So I was like, no, there's no way I can do that. But he was like so insistent. He was like, mine's just sitting in storage. It's an extra one. I'd rather see it go to somebody who really enjoys it and will appreciate it, like you. And so he said I think he shipped it to me before I even paid. Like, that's how crazy this guy was. And he sent it to me, and actually, and ended up Toy Doja Eddie knew him. He was a customer, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that guy's great. He buys so much. He's such a nice guy." And so I ended up sending him money afterwards, which was more than he asked for, but nowhere near what it would have cost me if I went to eBay or anybody else. But he was like, "Oh, you didn't have to do that," but he was very gracious. So thanks to Chris, if you're watching, for doing that for another fan when you really didn't need to. So that was probably my grail, my most recent grail.
Take a little detour. So I saw a question pop up, and it kind of had the same question. So obviously we've got two masterpiece Menosaurs coming out. You know, you got the X-Transbots and you've got the Fans toys. And I've obviously
DX9 too, yeah. DX9.
Yeah. Oh, and DX9, that's true.
Oh, biased already, man. You're only sharing two of them?
Well, I didn't buy the DX9 one, but which one are you going for was the question that got posed.
So
or both.
I had the first two of the X-Transbots. I really like 598 Robots, even before I knew him personally. I always thought he had really great engineering and style for both modes. I just always thought he could be a little bit easier on the transformation, which he has done now. So I've always been a big fan of his, so I'll collect his no matter what. Fans toys, I'm one of those people that is not as enamored with Fans toys anymore. I feel like they've been hit or miss a lot, and the scale for their Stunticons just doesn't do it for me when they're like as tall as a Seeker or a little bit taller. And I know that it's a compromise between, the combined mode, which I think most people will display it as, and individual. But for me, I don't know that I'll pick up the Fans toys ones. The scale in robot mode just doesn't work for me. And there's always going to be a compromise. I know X-Transbots is compromising with like the frame that they're doing, which is going to make up a lot of the extra height without changing the proportions in robot mode.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the X-Transbots, their version of Stunticons so far. They've been really awesome. But recently they announced the pre-order for Fans toys, and I found myself thinking I'm gonna have to buy both and compare them, and obviously I'm gonna do a review and a video.
I'll let you do that.
What was that?
I'll let you do those comparisons and reviews.
Yeah, for sure. But this kind of leads into my next question. Is sometimes when I see these, I'm like, oh man, I gotta buy all this stuff, and then I think to myself, maybe I should just get rid of this, and maybe it's time. Have you ever thought to yourself, time to get out of collecting, or sell the collection, or sell part of it, or are you just content with what you have? Or
no, actually, I even posted recently that I'm trying to reduce my collection. I think not reduce my collection so much. I will trim down. But like you, I start off as a masterpiece collector. Purely, I was going to do Hasbro releases only until I found out about the
third party.
Yeah, so much more that the car had already released, and I am not that patient to see if and when they were released in the U.S. And then I started getting into third party, and then once it just got too wild. So right now, I'm just trying to focus back on masterpiece. Focusing on the designs and the designers and the companies I really like, and not try to buy everything like you said, because you can't unless you're way wealthier than I am. I don't think you can afford to just collect every single instance of every masterpiece or masterpiece adjacent version of every character. So for me, I'm slowing down what I'm collecting over what I'm buying overall. But I'm also taking a hard look at my collection and seeing which ones I really don't love and getting rid of those as well.
I did see that. I saw that you posted some items for sale, on Facebook. Was it Facebook? I can't remember.
Yeah, Facebook and TFW. Most of those actually were just like duplicates, and I'm crazy. I'm a crazy completionist. So like even when I got the Takara ones or later version of the mold, I was like, oh, I'm gonna keep this just so I have a complete masterpiece collection. And I was like, this is ridiculous. There's no way I can continue doing that, especially with all the anime versions that they're coming out with. And I'm like, okay, rein it back.
I started that way. I was getting all the repaints and all. What do you call them? The alternate versions.
Yeah, all the pluses. You know, I would love to get the toy color Shockwave that they just released, but I love that toy, but I love my Quake Blast. That's the dark metallic color, and I love the official original release, and I can't justify getting rid of one of these two just to get another color.
Yeah, especially for double the price.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you see next? What's coming for the Transformers community? What do you think's the next big thing?
So I think like in a lot of again from my experience and from what I've seen, it's the same thing everywhere. No matter what industry you really go through, everything happens in cycles. So even in the transformer lines that we see, the main line and third party, it goes through cycles. Something that was in style, you know, a little while ago is going to go out of style. So I think we had the 80s period, the G1 period. I think we're coming probably towards the tail end of that being super popular. And then we're going to have like the 90s kids now who are old enough in like their 30s who now have the expendable income that are out of their 20s and stuff like that. I mean, that's how I think a lot of us started collecting these high-end collectibles, is because we reached that age where we're making enough money to do so. And, you know, 10 years later, it's going to be the 30-year-olds and the 90s kids and what they grew up with. And they grew up with a different generation of Transformers or collectibles. So I think that's why we started seeing Beast Wars. I think that's why they're starting to dabble in some of the later G1, like not just US cartoon G1, but other versions of G1 from the Japanese. And then after that, it will probably go to some of the games that we're seeing now. Siege is coming out. But if you look back on it, we've gone through this rodeo, this dance before, and it just happens in cycles. So what's next is going to be, you can probably look in the history book of all the Transformers catalogs, and you can probably predict with pretty strong accuracy what the next line is going to be. And then, you know, in another 10 years, maybe they'll do G1 again. It would not surprise me. They've already done it with Masterpiece now twice, going on third time with Masterpiece Prime. So again, everything happens in cycles in all industries.
So what's next for you as a reviewer, as you know, for the community?
Oh, for me, I think I've been traveling less to the cons. Like I didn't go to both TF cons this year. I went to every single TF con, both Canada and US, since I really started heavily collecting, I think like 6 years ago. This was the first year I skipped Chicago, the US one, mainly because they've had it in Chicago so many times and I'm tired of it. I was so happy when it was in DC. I thought it was the best show. And obviously I benefit since it was like a 20-minute drive for me, but I thought it was the best US show that they've had. So I would love for it to move around more, see more of the country, but I'm tired of going there. So I'll probably travel less depending on where the US ones are. I'll probably stick with the Canada ones. I probably won't go to the one in March in LA just because I think 3 cons a year is a lot, and I don't have any particular love for the LA, or is it LA or San Diego? LA, right? Or
yeah,
LA. Yeah. I don't have any particular love for LA, and I was just there, so I don't know if I can justify another four days, because I go there before the con to help out and after the cleanup. So it's not just, you know, a 1 or 2 day thing for me. When I go out to these, it's usually like a 5-day thing. So I think for me, I'm going to try to be much more regular again, but regular doing like live stream reviews, because I think that's what I've discovered is what I really enjoy, as opposed to the pre-recorded stuff. And I'll still do like the instruction manuals, because I think people really, I get comments all the time or PMs saying, you know, your your video really helped me get past a transformation point that I didn't understand. So I'm going to still do that, but I'll probably stop doing those traditional trying to be the first reviewer to review the next hottest toy thing. But I do want to continue. I just won't be as prevalent.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I want to open up the floor to anybody that's watching. There's 14 people watching right now, so go ahead and you can post your questions. And while I'm waiting for that, I have other things I want to ask too.
Yeah.
Are you planning to try to expand to any other manufacturers besides X-Transbots and MMC?
Well, I mean, I don't really work directly for. I mean, unlike MMC, I have a direct relationship with. In that, I have a direct relationship with Iron Factory. They send me their figures, and I do the official transformation videos for them. X-Transbots, I don't have anything regular with them where they send me stuff, and I don't do any official work for them. I would love to do that with them, but I think 598 does a good job previewing them, and he does a really good job with transformation as well. So I don't know if that's really necessary, but I'm always open to doing stuff like that. It's just a matter of time and interest from both parties, right? Yeah.
Are you into the Flames toys stuff that's coming out?
Flames toys. I was actually lucky enough to talk with them, before they came out to TFCon a couple years ago, and actually introduced them to PL, Ben. Obviously, one of the biggest ones. I was like, hey, you should really get PL here. And I brought Ben over and introduced them. I was like, you should really get this guy to review your stuff because it's really high-end stuff.
You met Ben?
Yeah, Ben, yeah, he's not that far from me either. He lives in Richmond. And I used to go to Richmond like 2 or 3 times a month for work. But yeah, I know Ben. I met him at TFCon. I've chatted with him, talked with him. He's a really great guy. So again, I guess we have kind of a Virginia, DC, Maryland kind of covered in the reviewer space. But yeah.
So a question from Big Stan Harris. What's your favorite MMC figure to date and why?
Oh, I can't even remember all the MMC figures. Like, people ask me favorite figures, and I have to literally look around and see which ones I like. MMC or Ocular Max as well, because...
Yeah, both.
I really like Sphinx for Ocular Max. I was waiting for a very long time for a really good, a very good MP Sphinx Mirage. So I think Alex Kurbansky, I don't remember how he pronounces it, but he is also one of my favorite designers. He does a lot of the tapes. I love the tapes. I think these guys, Frenzy and Rumble, have some of the coolest transformations. I really like their Jaguar. So they're probably some of my favorite Ocular Max ones. MMC, it's kind of weird. I got into the comics after MMC toys. I didn't read the comics before that. I don't know. I don't know which my favorite MMC one. Oh, I ended up liking Wing, their Alpha. I thought I would like their Drift more because I am a Drift fan, but I end up liking the version of Wing more as a remold, a version of that mold. Everyone likes Megatron. I think he's pretty good. And their Tarn. I'm a big Tarn fan. I have artwork done by James Reyes at TFCon. He did this custom one. He actually showed it on his channel, doing it, a live sketching of it. So maybe Tarn as well. But there's some
Tarn from Flame Toys.
They're Tarn from the IDW comics, and they're
getting that. Are you getting that figure or no?
Oh no! Again, I want to collect them, but they're really expensive, and I don't know. I can't justify it right now. Just because I only have like one figure. The Ultimetal is the only like non-transforming transformer I have, I think. So I'm not really about the non-transforming figure. But I also like their upcoming Bruticus. Like, I've gotten to mess very heavily with their Onslaught and their Whirlwind. So both of those and that all-in transformation, I think that's going to be probably one of my favorite designs even though it's not out yet.
A question: what from K Tech Glass? It says, "What display is in the background? Is that your MP display?"
No, so this one's just kind of a hodgepodge. My MP display is mostly in the DTOFs over here. I don't know. Here, hold on. It's mostly in these DTOFs here. I only have two because, again, I don't have much space.
Yeah.
But the one over here is just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff I have left over. Like the top left is random combiners. The top right are like the Japanese Headmaster series. The middle here is just like offshoots, like recolor. So I have like Sound Blaster. I have like Evil Drift. I have G2. Like it's just random recolors and remolds, mostly in the red and black space. Like MP9 B, the Black Rodimus is there, and then I have a whole row dedicated to IDW. So I have mostly MMC, but also some other third-party and official IDWs in that row. Movie figures over here generally, Beast Wars, and then again random stuff at the bottom. So
just a mix of everything.
yeah, I really only keep my masterpiece shelves any semblance of organized.
Is that your review area right there to your other side?
Yeah, over here, the one where you see the what is it, Storm. I don't even know the TFC Optimus, the GI Joe Optimus. I just got that the other day. Yeah, that's my review area. It's pretty small. It's nothing crazy like Ben, like PL has or anything like that. Again, I had to kind of keep it all self-contained, so that takes up basically the entire wall over there.
I'm trying to get Ben's collectibles on soon. I don't know if you've watched any of his stuff.
Oh, Ben's collectible. Yeah, he's. I met him once at TFCon, right before his surgery and everything like that. He's such a nice guy, but I can't keep up with his reviews because he does so many. So
he comes from the UK all the way to TFCon.
Well, he lived in Canada for a little bit, and right before he moved back because of his back issues, his spine issues, I guess. He was living in Canada for a while, and then so he had to move back because that was just becoming outrageous, from what I understand. So he was still in Canada at the time, so it was very easy for him to go to TFCon Canada.
All right, fell behind on questions here. What's the difference between the MMC and Ocular Max brands?
Well, the Ocular Max is obviously their masterpiece line, and their master what is it called? Their MMC brand is IDW focused, IDW Comics focused.
Yeah, I probably could answer that question myself.
Yeah.
What kind of, do you have any Chug stuff?
Chug, yeah, I do have some Chug stuff. Again, it's mostly kind of mixed up in that it has to have some kind of theme. So again, I have a lot of Chugs that are with the IDW Comics.
So the question is, what kind of shelves are best for displaying Chug?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you're asking the wrong button. Like I said, my display is just a hodgepodge mostly, and it's not even well lit. I'm the wrong person to ask for about good displays.
I don't know if you saw, Bobby did a video on displays recently. It was pretty interesting, and most people use DTOFs, and there's so much space, empty space between the figure and either the sides or the top. So it makes it look like the figures are really small. It's hard to find the right space.
There's one guy on Facebook that's been selling the DTOF shelf spacers.
Yeah,
so you can shorten them or lengthen them so you can have without taking out a shelf. And I've been meaning to buy some because I would love to get some of my larger figures in there without taking up two shelves. Like if you took up one and a half. So I've been looking to get that, but some guy, I don't remember his name unfortunately, but he has been selling spacers that move up and down that shelf, which will really help that display.
Sure. Hey, so I really want to thank you for spending time with us and doing the interview. I don't have any other questions from the audience, so I'm gonna appreciate your time. I don't want to go. It's 11 o'clock. I had you for an hour.
Yeah, perfect timing.
Talk to you again for sure. Are you planning to go to TFCon next year?
TFCon Toronto, I will almost certainly be there. It's a trip that I usually take my family on too, so they can see Toronto. We always stop by Niagara and do some other fun things. We make a trip out of it. And we drive up, so we drive overnight. So I'll almost certainly be there. And again, that's the premier TFCon, right? So I'll probably be at that. Depending on where they do TFCon, like in the fall TFCon, we'll see. Again, if it's in Chicago, almost certainly not, even though I love Chicago. If it's out somewhere new, like if it's back in DC, I'll obviously be there. If it's somewhere else in between, it'll be a judgment call.
Yeah, I definitely want to go to TFCon Toronto because I live in upstate New York, so the drive from here is
Yeah, no excuse.
yeah a lot closer than yours.
Well, what about you? I know I'm the one being interviewed, but have you been to any of the TFCons yet?
No, so this year I was gonna take it. It was gonna be crazy, but I was gonna take a train from New York to Chicago to go to TFCon, and I was actually going to interview Bobby at the TFCon. That's originally what I asked him, and then everything kind of fell apart, and I got sick, so I ended up not going.
Mm.
So next year I'm going to TFCon Toronto, and I'm gonna do some of these interviews right there, right then and there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
While I meet some other people over there, hopefully I can, get some connections between now and then. Just to meet some folks. So
yeah.
I'll see you there.
Again, if you're trying to reach out to anyone, I'm sure you've reached out to all the popular ones, but the reviewer community is pretty tight knit, so I'm sure we can at least point them in your direction if there's somebody who you haven't been able to contact yet. But most of them are pretty easy to contact, right?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. I definitely am excited to see you. I'll see you at TFCon Toronto. And thanks.
No, thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully it was interesting or somewhat entertaining.
Yeah, there was one question. I guess this question for me. So my display is, I just use shelves. It's nothing fancy. I just have white shelving with a white background. So, and I, custom build it to the size of the figures. So it's nothing fancy. I really don't have a great display. If you've ever seen my display, I don't have.
I see it right back there. Brown boxes. Come on, you gotta up your display game.
Yeah, this is Christmas, pile right there. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. Hopefully, again, everybody enjoyed it. I did.
All right, bye, guys.